Welcome to the session on Water Quality Standards and Overview. Myself, Dr. Tara Chandran, Senior Lecturer, Department of Public Health Dentistry, A.B. Shetty Memorial Institute of Dental Sciences. Water is essential for sustaining life. Access to good quality, adequate amounts of safe drinking water must be every individual's right, and it can add to tangible benefits in health. But water can get contaminated right from the source of collection to the point of consumption by people. It can be contaminated even after disinfection, while maybe if the quality of disinfection is poor, or maybe in the collection pipes it can contaminated with the sewage. So that there are many options for water to get contaminated. So it's very much needed to maintain the water quality in terms of physical, chemical and biological characteristics. So a range of guidelines or numerical value is being given for set of parameters to be compared with the standard. So a guideline value is normally the concentration of a constituent that does not result in any significant risk to health over a lifetime of consumption. As per WHO, there are 4 guideline parameters for water. It can be acceptability, microbiological parameters, chemical and radiological. Coming to acceptability aspects, it can be physical parameters as well as inorganic constituents. Water that is safe and wholesome may not be always acceptable for drinking. So most of the physical parameters do not have a clear guideline because it doesn't have a direct influence on health. Turbidity, it is due to the suspended particles in water. So it is the ability of light to pass through water. These suspended particles can collect microorganisms between them, and it can act as a shield during the disinfection process. So it decreases the disinfection capacity of water. Color. Color can be true color or apparent color. So if there are some dissolved minerals or some suspended particles, both of these can contribute to the color, and that is called the apparent color. Now if you remove the suspended particles, and the color due to the dissolved impurities is the true color of water. So how we compare is, we compare our sample to standard solutions or with a color disc. Usually pure water is colorless. Taste and odor. Taste and odor, again, it doesn't have a proper guideline. It can be due to the dissolution of inorganic waste or organic waste or dissolved gases, or it can be due to excess amounts of chlorine due to disinfection. Often, even though the quality of water is good, if it has some objectionable taste or odor, we tend to disregard the water and consume other sources of water which may not be relatively safe. Temperature. Temperature affects the chemical reactions or the viscosity of water or the biosorption of water with chemical hard metals. So water in the temperature range of 10 to 15 degrees Celsius is normally considered palatable. Coming to the inorganic constituents, it can be chlorides or sulfates. Both of them can be present naturally or can be introduced in water through artificial sources. So the artificial sources can be agricultural runoff, industrial waste, or due to mining, etc. Chlorides are present in the range of present as sodium chloride or calcium chloride or magnesium chloride. Normally it is present in fresh water, but presence in excess amount is an indicator of contamination with wastewater. Sulfates also, they can also be present normally or through the artificial or through human interventions. For all these, the guideline values are introduced in the reading resource. Hardness of water, it is due to salts like calcium and magnesium, bicarbonates, carbonates or sulfates, and even nitrates. So it can be temporary hardness or permanent hardness. It is dealt as a separate section. Ammonia, it can be due to the fertilizers leaching out or due to the contamination with wastewater. So ammoniacal water has a characteristic odor and taste. So if it exceeds it becomes unpalatable. Hydrogen sulfate, we know it has the classic rotten egg smell, and when taken in excess, it can cause nausea, epigastric pain and vomiting. The iron, sodium, zinc, manganese, copper are all elements which we require in trace amounts, but in excess all of this can cause an objectionable odor and taste. Iron and manganese, it's present in their ferrous, is present as ferrous form and manganese form in the groundwater, but when it comes in contact with the surface air, it gets converted to ferric ion and manganic ion, which has a characteristic color. Dissolved oxygen is one of the key parameters for checking the water quality. So, a good quality water has high amounts of dissolved oxygen. Oxygen is actually very much soluble in water, but it's affected by the salinity and temperature of water. Coming to the total dissolved solids or TDS, there are many cations and anions which are dissolved in water, which includes calcium, magnesium, sodium and potassium, and the anions are carbonates, bicarbonates, chlorides, sulfates and nitrates. So, the water that doesn't have any of these TDS or the level is relatively low or even high amounts of TDS is unpalatable. So, in a report of WHO, a group of tasters has classified water according to palatability based on TDS levels. It's excellent if the TDS level is below 300, good between 300 and 600, fair between 600 and 900 milligrams per liter, and poor if the level is above 900 and below 1200. At higher levels of 1200, it's completely unacceptable to drink water. pH. It's another parameter that doesn't have any direct effect on health. Water contains acids or alkalis in very low concentration, or it is a very weak alkali or acid. Strong acids and alkalis have the ability to corrode. Even our gastric juice has a pH of 2.5. So, the food or water we take is generally doesn't have any effect as such on human health, but when it passes through the pipes, it can corrode the heavy metals and that has a direct effect. Microbiological aspects. As I told you, water can get contaminated from various sources. Ideally, the water we drink should be devoid of any pathogenic organisms and must not contain any virus, parasite, bacteria or any other free living organisms. But water can get contaminated with human and animal excreta. Suppose if there is any leakage in the water pipes, or if there is any stagnancy in the pipe, then that can lead to regrowth of bacteria like Campylobacter or Mycobacterium, which require less nutrients to grow. Cyanobacteria is another blue-green organism that can release toxic alkaloids and neurotoxins into the water, and the removal of which is little difficult. So, we have some bacteriological indicators which indicate the fecal contamination of water. These are usually non-pathogenic organisms. We have the coliform organisms. The total coliform is composed of fecal coliform organism as well as non-fecal coliform organisms. The fecal coliform organisms, usually E. coli or fecal streptococci, they can ferment lactose at about 44 degrees Celsius into gas and in the presence of bile salts. So, these are usually non-pathogenic, but the other form of coliform organism is a non-fecal coliform organism like Klebsiella, which are pathogenic. So, both of these can be used as bacteriological indicators, but usually E. coli is commonly used. Fecal streptococci can give us an indication of recent contamination of water with fecal matter. Clostridium perfringens give an idea of the remote contamination of water with fecal organisms, as well as an idea of the protozoa and enterovirus present in water. Other indicators are bifidobacterium and bacteroids, which are recently being used but not very commonly used. Virological aspects. The drinking water should not contain any amount of virus. We are familiar with various viruses that cause gastrointestinal problems like Coxsackie A virus, B virus, then poliovirus, rotavirus, hepatitis A, E, etc. So, this should be completely absent in water. And the water should also be devoid of protozoa like Giardia and Cryptosporidia, any helminths and free living organisms like fungi or algae. Coming to the chemical aspects, it can be any inorganic constituents or organic constituents. Organic constituents are usually not natural sources. They include polynuclear aromatic hydrocarbons, pesticides, detergents, and solvents. And inorganic constituents includes the heavy metals like arsenic, cadmium, chromium, cyanide, fluoride, lead, mercury, nitrate and nitrite, and selenium. So we know fluoride in the adequate amount, it is protective for health. It prevents dental fluorides in children, but when the amount is exceeded, it can cause dental fluorosis, and at still higher amounts, it can cause skeletal fluorosis. Lead in higher concentration can cause decrease in IQ as well as cognitive impairments. One aspect of the chemical constituents is that a single exposure usually doesn't produce any acute effects. The effects are accumulated over a period of time. So it's always wise to use our resource to prevent the source of contamination rather than removing these chemicals from water after the contamination has already occurred. Nitrates and nitrites, another exception, it can cause effects after a short period of time. It can cause methemoglobinemia in infants if consumed. Like it can reduce the oxygen carrying capacity because the nitrogen will combine with hemoglobin and it will produce methemoglobin. So the oxygen level in the blood will be decreased. Similarly, cyanides also have an acute effect. Coming to the radiological aspects, the radionuclide elements can be natural or man-made. Most often it is natural in the soil. It can be uranium, thorium or radon, and the decay of this can produce alpha, beta and gamma. So we have to monitor the levels of alpha activity. It should be less than 0.5 becquerel per liter, and beta activity should not exceed 1 becquerel per liter. Anthropogenic sources can include mining or radionuclide from medical treatments, etc. Radon is a gas. It's a highly volatile gas which is produced naturally from decay of uranium or radium. So it is always present in water. And while consuming also, if the level exceeds about 100 becquerels per liter, it needs to be taken care of. So an individual dose criterion of 0.1 millisievert from a year's consumption of drinking water is actually considered safe, and most of the times we do not exceed these values except in accidental spillage. So to conclude, all the 4 parameters has to be taken care of in order to ensure adequate, safe and wholesome drinking water. These are my references. Thank you.